Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. Just before we begin, I just want you to know that there's nothing nicer than just to be with you, to be in that presence, that place within each one of us that opens up. And when it opens up, we understand that it is a sacred place, a sacred space wherein we connect with each other, to those in our family and friends, with all of humanity, within the planet and beyond. Just a joy to be with all of you here this morning. Just two announcements. First of all, invite all of you to our meditation tomorrow evening, Monday, from 7 to 8 o'clock. It's just always so much fun. And then especially I'd like to invite all of you tonight to our Sunday testimonial from 6 to 7:30. Judy K. Irvin from Pittsburgh will be our presenter. Please join us if you're able to do so. Let's begin. It continues to be a great joy for me to greet you in these weekly teachings. Usually, I am the one who does the teaching, perhaps about a topic as we had the last week, about new declarations of independence and declarations of interdependence that we address in the teaching. However, every once in a while, although I must say more and more, you become the teacher. You become the teacher by the inspirational ways that you are bringing the light, the illumination, the consciousness into the material realms as you. Let me explain. On a regular basis, I receive emails from our members indicating how our awareness of the universal principles and values of higher consciousness, how the universal principles and values of higher consciousness is now working in their lives. And I think many of us understand that we also see these things being expressed in many of our discussion groups. So it is the recognition of your growth and the inspiration of your actions that I now want to present in this week's teaching entitled, Your 3 U-Turns. Your 3 U-turns, Y-O-U turns. You might want to take some notes. First, let me mention 2 examples of our members' inspirational actions, although I could mention many, many, many more. Then I will focus on what is happening concerning our 3 U-turns, and then finally connect with what might be really what is going on, something really going on within you. First, the 2 examples. And let me again mention that I could mention many, many, many more examples from our members in what they are doing. The first example deals with a family death and the light that one of our members brought to her niece and nephew and her other family members in that situation. Our member was able to bring a very calming presence and especially encourage family members to be respectful of each other during this occasion. Each of us knows that we will have to deal with such family events in the future. Our goal, hopefully, will be to be there as the light, as was our family member, a member of Now Creations. Whatever the situation calls for, I trust that we will bring that light even into these very challenging situations. The second incident. The second incident concerns the relationship of one of our members with her grandson. Again, a very, very important thing for us, particularly is how she reflected on how the universal principles and values of awareness has enabled her to have a wonderful relationship with her grandson to the point of their becoming best friends. My interpretation of that relationship. Best friends, grandma and grandson. Again, these 2 examples are what many of us are doing in our lives as we continue to grow in conscious awareness. So I ask you the question, what is really happening to us? What is really going on? Might I suggest the following? I believe that what is happening is that you and I are advancing in consciousness, that you are making a U-turn, a Y-O-U turn in your life. You are making a U-turn. In fact, there are 3 U-turns that I'm going to suggest. Let's begin. The first U-turn. You might be asking, a U-turn from what to what? This is what I see many of us doing. First of all, you are making a U-turn from self-interest, from the ego in the grip of worldly concerns, from the ego and from the grip of worldly concerns to a genuine interest in all others, and not just in our family members, but a genuine interest in all others. We are making a U-turn from the old patterns of me first to the new pattern of our authentic self, wherein this U-turn to the authentic self is experienced as a sense of oneness with everyone with whom we might be engaged at any particular moment, whether it's a niece or a nephew in a family death situation, or a grandparent to a grandson, to anyone with whom we might be sharing our lives. Once this shift has occurred, once we have made that U-turn from self-centeredness to oneness inclusion, once we have made the shift, once we have caused this divide of separation to be overcome and now move from separation to inclusion, things begin to change. I would now like to share with you the 3 things that I see changing in making your U-turn. While these things might only be beginning to change, I do believe that these 3 U-turns are the underlying momentum of what is happening within us, especially when we get to the 3rd U-turn. But the first change I see occurring is a shift from the consciousness of your consciousness growing to the evolution of all consciousness. It's a shift from simply seeing your own consciousness growing to understanding your participation in the evolution of consciousness. Let me explain what I mean. The main reason for many of us to walk the spiritual path of consciousness began because we sensed that something was missing in our lives. At that time, we probably didn't even know what was missing. We just knew that we were searching. We read, we studied, went to seminars, joined study groups, intent on what Robert Monroe would call that missing basic. What was it that we were missing? What was it that we were not seeing? Slowly but surely, and more, we came to realize, first of all, that the missing basic, that missing something, was not outside of us. The missing basic was something within us. It was not out there. It was within. This was our first U-turn. We stopped looking outside of ourselves. We made a U-turn to start looking within ourselves. But what was it? What was that something within us that we found? Eventually, it became clearer and clearer that the missing basic what we found within ourselves was a realization of consciousness, that we are conscious beings. We are self-aware beings. And from this consciousness, we began to see that we were related to the God consciousness, the second U-turn. We went within and found consciousness, the first U-turn. And then we realized that it wasn't just our consciousness, but rather it was the God consciousness, a second U-turn. And we made this second U-turn. And as we made this second U-turn, we began to understand that truly we are participants in the God consciousness. And we began to realize that we are co-creators in the God consciousness, that we are taking our rightful place as co-creators in the universe. Now, did you ever think you would say, I am a conscious co-creator with the God consciousness in the universe? Now, here's the point. You have grown from simply a concern about your own consciousness to the larger understanding of the evolution of consciousness on the planet. I want to say that again. You have moved from an understanding of your own consciousness related to the God consciousness to an understanding of the evolution of all consciousness here on the planet. But the point becomes even bigger. You are now interested in this evolution of consciousness, certainly not just for yourself anymore, but truly, you are interested in the evolution of consciousness in all others. In all others. Surely in nieces and nephews, surely in grandchildren, but also in all others. You truly are beginning to understand that as you have risen in conscious awareness, your rise is now an invitation that you extend to assist others to do the same. I believe that you and I are modeling an awareness of your consciousness. And as we do so, we invite others to come to that same awareness within them. We're beginning to understand that the light we have is a light within everyone. And we are inviting them to know the light. The greatest thing we can possibly do is, once we have discovered our own conscious light, is to invite others to the same light. It's the greatest thing we can do. Which now brings us to the second result of your U-turn to greater consciousness, to your authentic self. And might I suggest, it is a twofold shift. Please listen carefully. The first of this shift is the widening. It's the widening of your circles of concern and care. You have genuinely moved beyond family and friends. You've moved beyond just family and friends. This is a major point, not to be simply dismissed. Of course, you love your family and friends, but you are also realizing that wherever you are, with whomever you are, they are also becoming your family and friends. Your circle is widening. Just look at the way you approach everyday people in organizational responsibilities. Haven't you changed? You're kinder, you're nicer, you're smarter with everyone, and you're quite understanding of those who are not quite so understanding even of themselves. Your rise in consciousness has resulted in an inclusive circle of oneness. I want to say this again. Your rise in consciousness has resulted in an inclusive circle of oneness. You have made the second U-turn from your consciousness to the oneness consciousness. We are all children of the God Spirit. This movement to oneness has something else going on, which probably is maybe even more important. And it leads me to the second result of your shift to a greater consciousness, namely, something about this greater consciousness is happening within you. Something about this greater consciousness is happening within you. Please take note. Just follow me in this experience. Is it not true that you have been advancing in this consciousness? Of course you have. From your personal consciousness to the God consciousness to the oneness consciousness. Now here's the question. Have you stopped advancing in consciousness? Have you stopped advancing, or is there more for you to grow in? May I suggest the following to you? Not only have you grown in your consciousness and are continuing to grow, that there now seems to be something bigger than you, pulling you, urging you, attracting you to expand even more. Is this not true? Teilhard de Chardin called this the omega point, the end point. But such a point is not necessarily a destination, but rather a continuous expansion of your consciousness to grow into an even greater consciousness. Isn't this honestly what is happening to you? More and more of us are living from the light of a greater expansion of consciousness that continues to expand. And with it, not only does your consciousness expand, but so does your joy in your daily happiness. Which now leads me to the third point of your U-turn, which is the third and the biggest U-turn of all. The first one was your shift from ego to consciousness. The second U-turn from your consciousness to the God consciousness, which includes oneness with all consciousness. And now the biggest U-turn. As you begin to feel the movement of consciousness in you, this shift, the U-turn that I'm suggesting to you is a U-turn from your conscious self to an even larger conscious energy, and a questioning and yet an understanding. What does this conscious, bigger energy, what is it doing as me? What is this larger consciousness energy doing as me? There truly is something within me moving me forward. There's something in me moving me forward, that's something, that consciousness is more me than me. There is something moving you forward, call it consciousness. That which is moving you forward is more you than you. The larger consciousness is expanding itself as me. Oh boy, the larger consciousness is expanding itself as me. It's kind of like I have surrendered to the larger consciousness, and I am allowing it to guide me. And the it that is guiding me is more me than me. It's kind of like I have become it. It is running my show. Oh, and by the way, my show has never been happier and more joyful. But there's something more. I presume you're sitting down, you're taking a note. You have become devoted to it. You have become devoted to it. You have become devoted to the larger consciousness expressing itself as you. This devotion surely takes many forms, such as daily spiritual practice, especially meditation, and joining in our group meditations, especially those presented in A Course in Mastering Alchemy. But this devotion goes much further. Even in your private moments, when you are simply in your own thoughts and feelings, this larger consciousness is present. It is truly what you seem to become. A word that seems to describe this feeling is the word presence. There is just a presence that I am aware of that truly seems to be much more me than me, that old personality self. You have made the third and final U-turn into the you of greater consciousness as you. A U-turn from ego to consciousness, from your consciousness to God consciousness, inviting all others into the family. And now this third shift into consciousness as you. I know that many of you are experiencing this U-turn, and perhaps you're not quite sure of what to make of it. I trust that today's teaching might be a guidance for you. In conclusion, a stated goal of our teaching is that this larger conscious presence will become our all the time, eyes open, walking around in the world, state of being, in every situation, without exception. I believe that you and I have made these U-turns into the greater consciousness. And we are devoted to the greater consciousness. Oh, and did I say our lives are the happiest and the most joyful that they have ever been? Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. Let us begin today as we normally do, just focusing on the breath. Obviously, our intention is going to be the U-turns, the 3 of them. But let's begin first of all by settling ourselves, settling our bodies, settling the mind, and bringing the soul to the fore. Allow the breath to do what it does, to settle the parts of us that are not us, to bring that which is you to the fore. Please begin. And would you now say to yourself, oh, here I am again. Here I am. This is the inner me. This is my soul self. And just take a moment to acknowledge that. Oh, this is the inner me. This is the part of me that I'm in charge of. No one yanking my chain, no one to blame. I'm simply in charge of me. You also realize that your free inner self, your soul self, is creating your reality by the choices you make. Would you simply acknowledge that? I'm creating my reality by the choices I am making. And just acknowledge that. And would you further acknowledge that either you have made or are making 3 choices in your life that are very important. The first choice has been a U-turn, a turning of you away from the grip of the world and me first, into a shift of inner awareness, kind of an inner presence. Feels good. Feels good. So freeing. It's not that you don't deal with the world and that you don't deal with your everyday life. They certainly are concerns, but they're not your obsessions. And you realize that they all come and go. That you, in your consciousness, you realize that you're in charge and you're allowing your inner self to guide you. And then would you acknowledge a second U-turn? You made a U-turn from the outside to the inside. That now you have made that second U-turn of your consciousness into the God consciousness. That your consciousness is a part of the God consciousness. And more you are creating from that God consciousness. Boy, that's a big step. And probably, the biggest step in your second U-turn was is your desire to invite others to this same consciousness. You genuinely would like others to know what you have come to know. And you're beginning to feel that what you have come to know is what you would like all humanity to know. That each of us can make this shift into the God Spirit consciousness. We can be kinder and nicer and smarter. Don't have to be at odds. And you are modeling this behavior because it's the most fruitful thing you can possibly do. You are living this presence, modeling a beautiful way of life for others. And then it's bound to happen. Then it's bound to happen. For some of you, it'll be maybe happening today or in your future. For some of you, it's already happened, perhaps indistinctly, but certainly experientially. And that is this larger consciousness has become you. Not the little you of your personality and position in the world, but you, the inner you, has advanced into the universal consciousness. Is this not true? And you are devoted to it. You are devoted to it. Little by little, it is becoming you. As it. Thou as me as thee. We are one, thou and me. Thou as me. Me as thee. We are one, thou and me. I think our closing song will have an advanced meaning today.
shines bright to illumine love without, love within. I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee. When you are where you need to be, within that space, I honor thee. Seen through eyes an illusion, seen through spirit, we are one. I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor
being devoted to consciousness. It's just the end game that we can experience right now. Let's just continue to help each other and enjoy the beauty of life as each one of us. Namaste.